Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, death slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks, protesters. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome, and let's go to the not so good old USA or the good old USA, depending on which side of the fence you choose to be on. And so let's talk about the inauguration. It's tomorrow, and the pre-ceremony is going on now. And of course, everything's lining up to make it look like the inauguration is going to be a fucking battlefield. And very unfortunate. I know a lot of people get out in the streets and think they're voicing their opinions and making their feelings known and are going to affect some change. But unfortunately, it really doesn't work that way. So it's just going to be a spectacle, and Donald Trump will continue to be president, and they're just going to mark the event with all this ugliness. And I know, people on one side of the fence will think this is going to be a glorious escapade, but I don't know. I've been around for a little bit, and I look back at the Democratic Convention of 1968, for example, that was laden with riots and people being hurt. And anyway, it didn't really affect much. And now it's just you look back and it's just hard to watch. And it's too bad that our political process has to get that way. And it's also interesting that we have these so-called democratic political processes going on, and yet, like third world countries, we're going to have a massive amount of violence associated with the transition to power. And I don't know, I'm bewildered. Of course, as most of my regulars know, in fact, all of my regulars know, I don't care one way or another. I don't like Republicans and I don't like Republicans. They're both the same to me. They have kind of different personalities, but basically, at the heart of it, it's essentially the same beast. Just the fact that they adhere to a party line just tells me everything I need to know. But let's look at some of these details, because there's going to be theoretically 28,000 security personnel there. Some of the numbers I've seen are 3,200 police, 5,000 military, and 8,000 National Guard. And so there's going to be a huge security presence there. And security costs are going to be about $100 million. So once again, the amount of money that's involved in everything that has to do with politics is just overwhelming. They're expecting about 800 to 900,000 people there to support the inauguration. Obama had 1.8 million. And so anyway, there's going to be significantly less, although the opposition is claiming that they're going to bring 270,000 protesters to Washington, D.C. And that may or may not be true. Of course, they're going to say that amount. And I think when push comes to shove, a lot of people aren't going to make it there. But who knows? There's certainly enough motivation and enough people out there that are extremely upset that they could manifest that many. So if they do end up doing that, it's going to be quite the spectacle. And then the news is focused in on a few small things that they've turned into giant headlines. In fact, Bikers for Trump said that they would protect Trump and create this, quote, wall of meat, unquote, which is a hilarious expression. And of course, that immediately hit the headlines in the idea that anybody that protects Trump is going to create a wall of meat. So, of course, the liberal media and the base jumped all over that. And so there's all these different groups like Black Lives Matter and Disrupt J20 who are going to be there, and they want to, quote, shut down the, quote, unquote, shut down the inauguration entirely. And I don't know, that's quite an ambitious goal, and one has to question what they think is going to come of it. And quote, we are not in favor of a peaceful transition of power, and we need to stop it, unquote. That's a direct quote. Now, if someone from the Republicans or the conservative base had said that when Obama was brought into power, of course there would be all kinds of outrage. But it's okay to say that now, and the fact that somebody who supposedly represents the liberal base and is so outraged by Trump's divisiveness and his violence that want to advocate violence, I don't know, seems a little disingenuous. But 27 groups have been issued permits, and then we're going to have a women's march there as well that they're theorizing that it may attract 100 to 200,000 people. So, boy, it just gets piled on and piled on and piled on. And then, of course, we have a Washington Post ABC poll that came out, the same ones that have been perpetrating all kinds of crazy shit and nonsense and fake news and propaganda has come out and said that Trump is the most unpopular incoming president in history, which, of course, is not entirely accurate. Certainly, the entire liberal base is motivated against him, but that would still wouldn't add up to these numbers. And in fact, I'll attach an article below that Zero Hedge debunked this poll. And these are the same people, of course, who took polls before the election and said that Hillary was going to win by a landslide. But of course, they still have credibility because they are putting out the narrative that a lot of people want to hear. And then, of course, we have 58 Democrats who will not attend, and mostly Black Caucus and whatnot. And there's one viewer brought up kind of interesting that we can have a caucus in Congress that's entirely based on race. And that's just part of the era we live in. If we had a white caucus, of course, it would be extremely outrageous. If we even had an Asian caucus, it would probably be outrageous. And I don't know, we could probably have a gay caucus, I suppose, but that hasn't really happened yet. But we'll see it. And then, of course, all the celebrities are piping in, and that's always just ridiculous and pathetic. And I know there's a worship of celebrity culture in America, and for some reason because they're celebrities and they're beautiful and rich, they are entitled to and have a forum of which they can express their opinions anywhere they want, unlike other Americans. But once again, kind of disingenuous because they're generally rich and pampered and are very selective about their outrage. And a notable example of that, of course, is Rosie O'Donnell coming out and saying that she thinks they should cancel the inauguration and declare martial law. And that's the kind of uninformed comments that we get all the time now, and very unfortunate. And in fact, another part of this is all the entertainers who have pulled out of the Trump inauguration because they received death threats. So there's another example of a real disappointment in a liberal base that's supposed to be advocating peace and nonviolence and trying to be inclusive, and yet they make death threats against celebrities who have actually pulled out. So they must have been serious death threats. So they pulled out of the inauguration. So anyway, that's a kind of just a big overview. There's so much material out there on the inauguration that I don't really need to say much other than to state my personal opinions here and observations for my audience and anybody else that cares to listen. But I'm bracing for the worst. I think it's going to be pretty dramatic. But I would also say that they've gotten the security apparatus down so much and it's so thorough that it's going to be really hard for protesters to really get into the inner circle to create a lot of drama. Because let's remember, under our previous presidents, not Trump, under our previous presidents, we now have free speech zones. And we've seen that before with the Tea Party movement and the Occupy movement. And so we have free speech zones now, and I guarantee you that there's not going to be a giant free speech zone in Washington, D.C. During the inauguration. So anyway, let's brace ourselves. This could be a real battlefield, and after all the dust settles, of course, apparently there's going to be ongoing local protests, both at the time of the inauguration, and they're planning on doing it for as long as they can. And at some point, of course, they'll run out of wind, and things will settle down, and they can continue to say, "Not my president." And for me, it's just deja vu. Because I got to spend 8 years through Bush of the liberal base saying not my president, and then I got to spend 8 years of Obama with the conservative base saying not my president. So to me, it's just a continuation of that. But wow, well, I guess we'll see tomorrow. The inauguration comes, and wow, battlefield Earth. I hope the event is better than the movie. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?